This week I have Pixar's Onward, and this has been a tough one for me to review. I think part of it is the expectations, because when you say a Pixar movie is coming out, I think a lot of us have high expectations for any of these films, right? They tend to be in a league of their own in terms of quality, but not every one of them can be an Up or an Inside Out or a Finding Nemo. You know, they can't all be that, and the more and more of them that come out, the harder it is because they're getting compared against these other films, and they are so different. So I think if you take that expectation out of it, and if you stop trying to compare it to the other ones and just look at it as a film, I think you'll be like, okay, well, it's going to set my expectations and make this journey a little bit better for myself. Like, for me, I know this is not going to be a classic film for me, even in terms of animation films. Like, I watch a lot of animated films. I have a background in it, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, this isn't quite where my personal preferences lie. That doesn't make it a bad movie. It's just not where, you know, it didn't resonate with me as much stylistically, story-wise, comedy-wise, as much as I would have liked to, but that doesn't mean it can't do that for you. And it is a little weird because I remember being at Disney's D23, which is this big expo they have that's kind of like their own Comic-Con, and I remember the director, Dan Scanlon, coming on stage, and, you know, he directed Monsters University, which I actually really liked. I thought it was a very funny comedy, and I wasn't expecting that from it. And that's another one, right, that people compare all Pixar movies to, right? It's one of those like mega legendary ones. But I remember he came on stage and he pitched the film, and he was like, hey, so, you know, he didn't really get a chance to meet his father. This movie is based on his own life, and the kind of only evidence or memory he has of him is this audio recording that I think was like taken at a party or something like that isn't an intentional recording. It wasn't like a left message for him. It was just there, and it was kind of this like casual, candid moment, and he played the recording, and I just remember getting like teared up, and because he was like, what would it be like to have a day to meet your father or meet somebody who's like wasn't a part of your life but should have been. And I was just like, man, that's such a powerful idea. And I was ready to cry. Oh my God, this is going to be I'm going to have a tearjerker, like get the tissues ready now. And I texted someone who worked at the studio, and they were like, no, it's actually going to be a comedy. And I was like, what? Okay, well, that's not really what the pitch positioned it as. I think the marketing materials are doing a better job of that, and the story has clearly evolved and still retains a lot of the core story arc from his original pitched at D23. I'm sure he's pitched it many times since. So the story is, it focuses on two brothers. They are voiced by Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. So Marvel Universe, Pixar, Disney Universe, all synergy aligning. And the idea is that they, much like the director, have lost their father at a very young age, or didn't even meet him at all. And they are granted, it takes place in a world of like magic and elves and dragons and stuff like that. So they are granted the opportunity to bring him back for one day. And this is in the trailers. If you haven't seen the trailers, then I'm not sure what you've been doing, but it's in the trailers. I hope it's not too much of a spoiler, but you know, the spell goes awry and only half of him comes back. And so I was like, when I was told it was going to be a comedy or could be a comedy, I was like, okay, you know what? I can actually see it. I thought Monsters University was very funny. I'm all in for a comedy. Let's see what happens. And I wish this movie had gone either like really hard in one direction or really hard in another, but I feel like it was kind of teetering in between. And there are moments when like it starts to get emotional. I was like, oh, is this my cry moment? I had my tissues ready. And I was like, nope. And it like backed away as if it was scared of getting too emotional. And then there was like, okay, there are some like kind of funny moments. Like the premise of having half a body there is very like Weekend at Bernie's, and there's some physical humor, but it just wasn't, it didn't like quite get there for me. And again, that's just for me, right? Like maybe if you have experienced the loss of a parent or a family member, like they have, like this will resonate more for you, God forbid, but you know, maybe this is a good cathartic cry. There are some like fun adventure stories. There were some like side stories in this that I really wanted to hear. Like Julia Louis-Dreyfuss plays Tom Holland and Chris Pratt's mom. There's a character voiced by Octavia Spencer, and I was like, I would like a fun buddy adventure between the two of them. Like that'd be great. Or more of a buddy adventure between Chris Pratt and Tom Holland. It does start to be that, but it's more of like a bickering family road trip, which is its own genre movie, right? This movie is drawing from so many genres, but because of that, I think it gets a little murky and like mushy, and not in a good way. There are some funny moments for sure, and my other question at the end of this movie was like, who was this movie for age-wise, right? Because it's a family-friendly film, and when I go to a movie like this, have to kind of gauge the reaction of children based on what I can hear from them, because kids have no filter, and for better or for worse, and they will laugh and they will let you know how they are feeling about a movie. And I only heard like a couple laughs, and there weren't a ton of kids at the screening I was at, but I was still like, oh, okay, so maybe it's a little more complex, and I do feel like some of the humor is a little more punny than a young child might be able to get. But then as adults, maybe we could have done with more of the deeper emotional stuff. Like, again, this is maybe messed up and on my side, but sometimes I want like that good cathartic Pixar cry. Like sometimes I just need that. Like even Coco, I think, was the last one where I was like, oh, this is very sad, but also uplifting and all that sort of thing. So I think if we take it away from the microscope of the other Pixar films and that pantheon, like I still think it's a very solid movie. I think it has good moments. The story is there. I just personally the story didn't resonate with me as much. And so I'm going to give this 3.9 out of 5. That's not a bad rating. It's just, that's where it lands for me.